2020. It is 5:05 p.m. Meeting is called to order. Lawrence, any letters and communications to the board?
I believe there was a board refile sent to everybody, and I don't have that in front of me, but I believe that was sent out. There was it had no letters or anything, but basically just the articles in the past month.
Any questions on any of that? Any comments? If not, we move on to approval of board minutes of May 14th, 2020. Mr. King, have you reviewed those?
Did found them to be in order, and I would move for their acceptance.
For a second?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
It was me, Anne-Marie.
A motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes of May 14th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Technical difficulties. We are scheduled to have the presentation 2019-2020 audit. Do we know where the auditors are on that? I don't see them. The auditors are not here, so we'll move on.
I have to let the auditors,
I'm sorry, Anne-Marie, what was that?
the auditors are here. But I need to give them permission.
Are they ready to give their presentation?
Yes, they will be. I just have to give them, a video.
We're ready, Anne-Marie, you can just start. I'm not hearing anything, Anne-Marie.
We're having some technical difficulties getting him access to speak. Okay, I guess if you want to move on, I'll let you know when they can join.
I didn't catch that, Anne-Marie.
I'll keep working on getting him access to join if it's on, and we'll let you know when.
Anne Marie, we're gonna move on. I can't hear you and I certainly can't hear the auditors. If we can work that out while we move on with the meeting, so we don't delay this too long. Let us know when they're able to connect and give us the report, okay? All right, let's move on to income and expense report.
I have redone the income and expense report so that you don't have 30 some odd just paperwork to look at. The first page is just a combination of the bridge and the port together. Shows the revenue and expenses. You'll notice under the port, under other income, there's $87,000. That is an insurance claim for building 11 or some roof damage. So that is not something that we'll see every month. We do see under the bridge $150,000 for the PPP, the payroll protection program. We have received $430,000 for the PPP. We'll use $150,000 in April and May, which coincide with weeks that we were given for the PPP. We have been given the CARES Act $2.4 million. We started submitting for reimbursement for the CARES Act in May. So you'll start to see the CARES Act on this sheet come May. There's a note under insurance on expenses. With the audit preparations and clarifications, the journal entry had not been done by the time I submitted these financials for you folks to see. Our insurance is under a prepaid expense, and every month we move out that portion that goes into a discharge expense. So you will see it in May, and we'll have the 2 months in there. So our change in net assets before depreciation were positive across the board, thanks to the PPP and the port other income. If we deduct the depreciation, the bridge is still positive, but the port goes negative. Port fund goes negative. Without the PPP, the bridge would have been $129,000 in the negative. So we can see that there is a great advantage to having been able to acquire both of these programs for the company. Now going further into these just go on to explain each area by itself. The bridge fund did include the bridge and the border station. Because the border station is in the process of being dissolved, all the income has been transferred into the bridge. So you have somewhat of a consolidated statement. Then the third page.
Is there a chance that everybody could just mute themselves? This feedback is really difficult to catch what's said.
The third page simply shows the
Hey, Sam,
actual
today
budget.
the sound is so terrible that I can understand very little of what's being said. And I think this isn't working as well as it has in other months. I will mute myself again.
Okay, Chris. We We obviously can't have the auditor's report without all of us being able to hear everything clearly. Let's proceed and see if it gets any better. If not, we might have to adjourn the meeting and see if we can do this a different way if it's not working. We all need to be able to hear things clearly and to discuss things. So you have a valid point. Let's see if it gets any better as we proceed.
You're much better now. It's a lot better now.
Chris? Yes? Okay, you're shaking your head. All right, then continue, please.
Okay, the third page is the bridge fund actual to budget. And because April is the first of the 12 months, 1 month and that portion of the year are exactly the same this month. So we did well on receiving more bridge pulls than we forecast. Our rental income stayed relatively stable. Now, Steve and I don't know if I mentioned, Steve and I went through the budget and we realigned the budget in light of the COVID uncertainties, knowing that the bridge was not going to produce the revenue, knowing that the airlines were not flying. A lot of the income and expense have been adjusted. So between the readjustment on the budget figures and the addition of the PPP and some of the deferment that we've requested, we've been able to keep ourselves in a fairly good position at the moment. If we go on to page 4, you can see the port fund with its 4 entities. There is a note to understand that the marine terminal did have over $20,000 in billing in April. However, they were March charges. Because March is month 12 and it's our last month in the fiscal year, all of that income had to be accrued back into the correct fiscal year. This only happens once a year for the income when we have to make sure it all gets into the 1920 or 2021 fiscal year. So even though the marine terminal shows no income, we did bill over $20,000.
So is everybody, okay, just shake your head, everybody can hear clearly now? Yes? Chris is laughing, must be good. Okay, continue on, please.
Then we go to the port fund actual budget. And you can see that we still got our rental income. We got our fuel and sales. The other income coming in there showing from the insurance claim. Our expenses were kept in check. So we did have $178,000 or $77,000 change, positive change before depreciation. These are a new template for you folks to review. You can make suggestions on how you'd like to see these in the future. If I can, I will implement them. If there's something that you think would make more sense to have included, something you don't need included, I'm happy to make the changes as you suggest if they're able to be done. The last sheet that I have is the balance sheet or the statement of financial position, showing our assets and our liabilities. just to highlight a couple of things. Our the grants receivable is an FAA grant. The inventories are simply fuel inventory. The prepaid expenses is mostly insurance that gets moved out monthly. Our fixed assets, and then the accumulated depreciation. Our other assets happen to be deferred outflows of pension and the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits that we give to our retirees. Construction progress is our projects that are not completed. When they are completed, they will become a fixed asset and move out of here and move out to fixed assets. Our current liabilities, we have accounts payable, the current portion of our long-term debt, and our accrued expenses. Accrued expenses include accrued salaries, vacation, interest, some OPEB liability, which accounts for $2 million, and what is due to New York State, accounting for approximately $19 million. Then we have the long-term portion of our long-term debt. Oh, I forgot other general liabilities. Those two, there are two major things in there: liability for retirement and the security deposit liability, which we have to put on the books because they're all security deposits from our lessees. We have the long-term portion of our long-term debt, and then our capital, which is the net worth of all of our funds. Any questions?
Chris, what do you think of that format?
I think this looks clear. I am at some point interested in getting management look at the next few months as opposed to a financial report on the prior month. But the format itself looks good. And I know these are such unusual times and situations we're dealing with that everything's going to look unusual in terms of the actual income numbers and expense numbers.
Okay. Any questions?
I believe the auditors are in now.
No. The auditors can call
Yes,
in.
you have. I'm in. This is Kent from the FDR Group. Hi. I don't think Joe is in here yet. So, Anne Marie, did you send that same email to Joe?
They did, yeah.
Because I had to log back out and then log back in.
Mhm.
So are you ready to proceed, or do you need him with you?
Let me have Joe log out and back in. But I can go ahead, just in the interest of time. I'm sure if Joe has something to add, he'll chime in somehow.
Okay,
Did
proceed.
you send that email to Joe as well?
I did, yes.
I don't. Okay, he said he logged back out and logged back in. I'll go ahead and go on with the presentation here. I assume that all of you have the financial statements in front of you. So in front of you, you should have the draft audit of the financial statements, the report to the board, and there's a management letter attached as well. So those are the reports that are completed thus far. In process, we still need a management representation letter before we go final on the financial statements. That's something that we'll send over as soon as we get completed with this. And also there's a waiver letter that's from one of the banks due to not being in compliance with the debt covenants. We'll talk about that later on in the financial statement presentation. So just to discuss these items in order, the financial statements, pages 1 through 3. That's our auditor's opinion there. Just a note here, management's responsible for the preparation and the presentation of these financial statements. Our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the financial statements. In doing so, in expressing an opinion on the financial statements, we follow certain rules. Those rules are generally accepted accounting principles, generally accepted auditing standards, and government auditing standards for you. So the most important thing to note in the opinion is that it's an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. So that's a good opinion. And then the second most important thing to note in the opinion is the references to the supplementary information in accordance with government auditing standards. That supplementary information is the schedules at the back where it details the OPEB and also the management discussion and analysis. So the MD&A is located on pages 3 through 7. This is where the management talks about it's their narrative on the outlook of the authority. And moving on to the statement of net position here. Yeah, Joe says he can't get in. So on the statement of net position, there's about $124,000 in cash. We reconciled all of the cash to the bank statements and bank reconciliations. There's about $190,000 in accounts receivable. The majority of those are
still a lot of feedback. Is everybody muted? Okay, continue, please.
Sure. The majority of those accounts receivable are for the industrial park lease rents. There's also about $92,000 that was recorded as a receivable for insurance proceeds due to a roof ripping off of one of the buildings. There's $274,000 in grants receivable. About $206,000 of that is due from the FAA, and an additional $68,000 due from the New York State Department of Transportation. You'll note that there's about $35,000 in fuel inventory. The $79,000 in prepaids is mostly prepaid insurance. The $148,000 in the compensating balance account, where you can see more detail of that on note 8D. That's where I said before, there should be about $200,000 in there in accordance with the debt covenants. So that's where we'll need to get the waiver letter for that. There's $204,000 in a bond payment reserve. That's being held in cash and equivalents at Wilmington Trust and Community Bank. About $499,000 in the debt service reserve. About $85 million in capital assets. That's net of accumulated depreciation. This year, we noted that there were additions for the harbor deepening project, airport lighting system, the airport drainage project, and the bridge painting project. There's $545,000 in deferred outflows of resources for pensions. You can refer to more information on that in note 9B. $105,000 in deferred outflows of resources for the OPEB. Again, you can refer to more information for that in note 10. There's about $1.8 million in accounts payable and accrued expenses. Of that, approximately $397,000 is aged 90 days or greater. The $95,000 in accrued interest is for the bonds. $905,000 in the line of credit. That includes the $416,000 from Tompkins Trust and $498,000 from Community Bank. $90,000 is in accrued vacation compensation. And then there's $450,000. That's the current portion due to New York State. So every year there's a required minimum payment of $75,000. Typically, the authority gets a waiver for that $75,000. So that $75,000 is just added to the current portion of the total about $18 million that's owed to New York State. The current portion of the bonds payable is about $87,000. And current portion of notes payable is $531,000. You can refer to more of that in note 8 to the financial statements. The current portion of the lease purchase agreements, again, in note 8 to the financial statements, that's about $115,000. There's about $2 million that's recorded as the OPEB liability. All that is an actuarially determined liability based on the future benefits that the authority has promised to provide to its retirees. There's $441,000. That's the proportionate share of the net pension liability that is for the New York State retirement system. That is calculated by the state, and then each member organization gets their share of that liability. There is about $18 million in long-term debt in New York State. That's what I alluded to before in the $450,000 in the current portion. And there's $6 million in long-term bonds payable. You can refer to more detail on that in note 8C. $3.4 million, and that's the long-term portion of your notes payable. That's in note 8 as well. Then you'll note that there's about $147,000 in deferred inflows of resources for pensions, $80,000 in deferred inflows of resources for OPEB. Those are, again, actuarially determined calculations by the state and the actuary that the authority pays to perform that calculation. So we noted that the current ratio is about 0.17 to 1. Typically for organizations, well, for every organization, you want to see a current ratio of at least 1 to 1. So you're well below that current ratio. There's a working capital deficit of about $3.4 million. That working capital, that is just current assets, less current liabilities. Now moving on to the statement of revenue and expenses and change in net position. You'll see that bridge tolls increased about $627,000. Most of that's just due to the approved toll increase that was implemented in April of 2019. Port operating fees decreased about $559,000. There was the big wind turbine project that was going on last year, so most of that decrease has to do with that going away. Airport fees and services increased about $399,000. That's all due to the addition of the carrier at the airport. Salaries and wages, that increased about $254,000. That's due to the hiring of additional personnel and to pay the pay raises. If you'll remember last year, the Volo contract, the FBO, that was done away with, so there were some additional personnel that were hired to take care of that. Buildings and grounds expense decreased about $300,000, excuse me, due to the bridge inspection that was being performed in the prior year. Advertising expense decreased about $88,000. Most of that's due to airport advertising. And professional fees decreased about $378,000. That's due to the wind turbine project concluding as well. Special handling expense, you'll also notice a decrease there of about $140,000. Again, same thing there with the wind turbine project concluding. So you'll note on the notes to the financial statements, those are included on pages 14 through 38. And then there's required supplementary information in the financial statements on pages 39 to 41. At the end of the report on pages 42 and 43, that's the GAGAS report. That's where we describe our consideration of internal controls in designing our audit procedures. We reported no deficiencies in internal controls considered, and there are no instances of non-compliance that we noted there either. This year, your federal awards did not exceed $750,000, so there was no single audit that was performed this year. Then moving on to the report to the board. If you have this in PDF format, it should be at the end.
Hey, Kent?
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is
Okay.
joking. I'm sorry. It just apparently operator error and technical problems. So, but I've been listening in, so.
So the report to the board, that's just required communication between us, the auditors, and you, the board of directors. This is where you'll note the significant accounting policies. Those are described in note 2 to the financial statements. There were no new accounting policies that were adopted this year. In fact, the Government Accounting Standards Board decided to postpone the implementation of most of the new accounting policies due to the COVID-19. There are certain financial statement disclosures that we consider particularly sensitive in nature. That is the disclosure of the pension obligations, the disclosure of the post-employment benefits, disclosure of contingencies in note 14, and the disclosure of the fiscal viability in note 15 to the financial statements. You'll note that we did not encounter any significant difficulties in performing our audit. We did note that there are no material misstatements. There were no disagreements with management. Again, as I mentioned before, there will be a management representation letter that will be provided that will need to be signed and returned in order for us to go final on this audit. And that's about it. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, again, I apologize for coming in late. I think Kent pointed out there's a couple of pending matters. There is a waiver that we are required to get. The other thing I think is perhaps some wordsmithing. There is a footnote that talks about border station, and I'm not sure if we've got a final footnote that's going to come back related to how to properly disclose that. You know, from our standpoint, the audit went the way we expected it to go, which is a good thing. And you know, I think the books and records are in good shape. And you know, it's unfortunate that the numbers continue to be what the numbers are. But you know, at least from our standpoint, the accounting side is come a long way.
Yeah, you know, one thing I wanted to point out as well is that despite being working in a remote environment, the flow of information was very good. Patty and Faria both did a great job in making sure that we had the information in a timely manner. We really appreciate it. It makes our job easier.
Yeah, this is unfortunately a new normal, and so a lot of jobs, you know, ended up being done this way, and that's not always the case. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions of the auditor? Wow. All right, Joe and Ken, thank you. We appreciate all the work you did on this for us. We appreciate your opinion. Thank you for that. I think as we move forward, I certainly appreciate the fact that Patty's here. And as you've stated, she's been helpful in you collecting the information you needed. And let's hope as we do move forward that our financial picture is even better than it is today. So thank you.
Sam, a question while we're still in touch.
Sure.
One of the items on our agenda is approval or acceptance, I believe is the word for acceptance of the audit. And we received the audit only today. I wonder whether or not we could accept it at our next meeting or at a later meeting after we've had time to look at it in more detail.
Yes. I agree. There's the disclosures they talked about that I haven't had a chance to look over. So when we get to that, Chris, I think it would be best if we just tabled that.
Great. If there's not a pressure on time, then we'd be able to do it in a more responsible way.
Right, I don't believe there is a time constraint.
Any kind of time constraint on when we adopt that?
Kent, do we have a time limit?
No, as far as, filing your Paris report would be the only time limit. The other thing is generally we would like to stay within 2 weeks of our attorney confirmation letters. I know I reached out to Frank earlier today to update one. So if we go beyond those 2 weeks, then we'll need to reach out to the attorneys and make sure that there have been no additional developments there. But nothing beyond
When's
that.
the next meeting? I'm sorry, when is the next meeting?
July 16th.
It would be more than 2 weeks, but we could schedule a special
July
meeting,
16th, yeah.
a special meeting just to take care of the audit. Chris, is that acceptable?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. So we'll try to do that within 2 weeks. That we can discuss at the end when we decide what our next meeting dates are. Okay, everyone else?
And if you would like us in on that meeting, the only thing I would ask is if we could have a phone number as a backup, just in case we have the technical problems that we had tonight.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's a good point, Ken. Yeah, soon, hopefully,
We're going back
we'll be able to meet in person
to technology.
soon. Anything else? Any other questions from any board members for the auditors?
I'm all set.
Okay, Dave, Megan? We're okay? Megan? Dave?
I'm good.
Megan?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, Joe and Ken, thank you.
Okay, then
Thank you,
we
folks.
will wait to hear from you. Like I say, we'd be happy to, to phone in or attempt to come in when you do have the meeting to accept.
All right, thank you.
Okay, take care. Have a good night.
Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, let's move on to the bridge traffic report.
Okay. Well, I believe you all have a report there, but for May, we're at 90% for auto crossings, and all other crossings, you see the percentage change went up to 31. And if you look, it's been running anywhere from 23 to 31 weekly. I did just get the recent ones that we got, and last week, everything was running about 91% down for autos, but truck traffic was up. By that, I mean, it was down 22% over last year for this time period. So that's encouraging, and that helps our revenue. So we've been running about 86 to 87% down in revenue, but just last week it's at 82. So there is a little slight increase. I think trucks have helped out with that, but overall it's a pretty bleak picture. And as you all know, we will be going another month, at least until the end of July. And that's going to present quite a few challenges for us, especially with the PPP money running out. And, I think we're good into the 1st of July, and hopefully, I don't know if the wind project money will be available by then. So it's a concern. We voice that concern weekly to the governor's office, but all they can do is kind of hold our hand. But there's nothing forthcoming right now that I can tell you about.
Any questions? None, move on to the airport activity report.
Okay.
Yep.
Unfortunately, again, the airlines did not send their enplanements to me on time. I do have them now. In May, we had 131 enplanements in total, significantly up from April, that was 34 enplanements. However, last year in May, we had 1,453 enplanements. So you can see we do have a big drop. Nationally, in April, there was a downturn of 98% nationwide. In May, it was down 96%, but already in June, it is now only 83%. And Ogdensburg is following right along with the national average. So slowly we are picking up traffic and we are picking up passengers. Right now, though, Allegiant is going into their hiatus. They did pick up 4 flights, canceled 1 due to lack of passengers, but they added, initially it added 4 flights, 2 in April, or 2 in May and 2 in June. And they go back to their regularly scheduled flights on the 24th of June. That will be 2 flights a week until the 2nd week of August, at which time they do their annual hiatus. And I've received their schedule for October, November, December. They start again with 1 flight a week and slowly increase toward the holidays. And they anticipate that the schedule will be similar to what we had this year. SkyWest got their waiver for the Chicago flight for May and June. They follow 1 week behind. They generally start their new schedule the first Monday of the month. So the first Monday in July, they will go back to both the Washington, D.C. and Chicago flights. We are starting to get a few general aviation. This is good. Folks really do want to fly again, and folks are flying just to get out right now. And when we do have the good weather, we are getting the general aviation flights. Other than that, the only other report I have is this weekend, we will be doing a water relay drill with the local fire departments. So if there is anything, if you see anything or hear anything, we're only doing the drill. Starts around 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, which should be wrapped up around noon. Any questions?
Have we hit 10,000 in payments yet?
No,
How close are we?
we're over 7,000.
So,
Stephanie, when you go online, you still can't pull up a United flight for a Chicago flight. When will they resume putting that online to purchase tickets if they're going to resume those flights?
I don't know, but I will check that out.
The only thing that pops up all the way into August or September right now is still just the Dulles flight.
Okay, I will check that out with United and see what's going on with that.
that's a good point, Dave. We need to be ready to let the media know when that flight back to Chicago will be starting up. So we can hopefully try to build some passengers on that.
I'm just really concerned about when it comes time for October and going out to bid and not having any passengers, how that affects us. So
Right.
Yes.
Stephanie, would you put that information together for us on when the essential air service bid process starts and timetable maybe?
I'll get that up to you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not, we'll move on to port activity report.
With the port, grain shipments are pretty stagnant. We do have some things moving, but you can see by the report there, the grain shipments are down by over 50% over April of the previous month. And we have, just lately, we have seen a number of, we've probably got a half dozen rail cars this week, so that's an improvement, but I don't know if they'll just stay for storage or we'll be shipping them out. On the second page, you see in there the Roaring Brook Wind Project. There's some photos of the MV Hilke that came on May 26th, and we received 5 nacelles and 5 hubs, and that was a one-day operation. The ship had unloaded deeper in the Great Lakes, and this was what was the remaining cargo was on, but the whole cargo coming in was windmill components. In fact, the next page is the MV Industrial Strength. That was here for 2 days, and we offloaded 15 blades. We kind of got a midday start on that, and rather than work overtime, we worked that into 2 days, and we were done about midday, or well, actually mid-afternoon the following day on the 28th. Everything went fairly well with both of those, and we anticipate to see 5 more, maybe 6 ships between first week of July through the end of August, and those will be bringing in more nacelles and more blades, but also a number of towers coming in for the project. And load out of these components, the pieces that came in, we expect to start at the end of June, and then load out of the rest of the components will be, I believe, early August through October. And we plan for that. So, and then on the last page, just wanted to do a shout out to the town of Lisbon. They've always been cooperative with us, and for one day last month, they had their grader regrade the whole port laydown area, which is really helpful when it comes to setting those components down. You don't have to use a lot of dunnage. Everything's pretty flat and keeps the weeds down. So I wanted to thank the town of Lisbon with the shared services, and we will take care of them at a later date with either some things that we have or something we can help them out with. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. Any questions on the port activity?
No? Okay. Move on to building occupancy report. John, are you still with us?
Yep. Yeah, we're holding steady at 87% in Commerce Park. The BAB is fully occupied. The office is there. The port's at roughly 29% for the buildings there, and the airport's at about 77%. My activity for the month was primarily Northern Border Regional Commission grant application that I wrote and filed for $350,000 in federal assistance, which would be used to complete the financings to move forward with the two NYOG railroad bridges rehabilitation, as well as $70,000 for 2 pieces of aeration equipment for the 2 grain bins at the port to get those online. I've been working with a prospect out of Iroquois, Ontario that is still active. Deals with medical equipment. They have an interest in being in Ogdensburg, although they've looked in Cornwall as well, I know. There's issues, of course, with the bridge closed. Right now, the startup's probably 2 months away. And as you probably read, the bridge is going to be closed for another couple months. But they are interested, and they're still working through some modifications to the design in that, so it's still active. I'm working with an Ottawa-based startup company that does delivery for last mile delivery for people. It's a startup, and I've got them interested in looking at the large number of packages that come to Ogdensburg and Commerce Park that need to be delivered to individual addresses in Ontario. They thought the idea was intriguing. Still working with the GSA prospect. I'm working with a company in Commerce Park, Steve and I, that's looking at adding another 10 or so jobs this year, trying to find some assistance for them for some improvements that they need. And I've been looking into additional grant opportunities. The EDA has like $1.2 billion in extra financing this year. That's the Economic Development Administration. That's through the CARES Act. So I'm trying to define a project for that. And then there's some upstate revitalization initiative funding I know that's available to the region, and I've been exploring projects for that. And I've written several leases, 2 of which are on your agenda tonight. They're both renewals, and then there's a couple for your July meeting.
Great. I know we may be a couple months away with a major cross-border activity. But John, have you thought about a plan that you would like to follow once things open up between us and Canada?
I'd just love things to be back to normal, where I could cross the bridge and go to seminars and events up in Ottawa and make contacts and have them come down and see our space. So it'll be nice when it reopens. Did you have something in particular you were thinking of?
I'm just wondering, with the now that we're aware of what we do not produce in this country, what is produced in China, if there's any possibility of hopefully either talking to some Canadian company or maybe even someone in the United States that will now, as we move forward, produce some medical equipment that we no longer do in this country. If you thought of putting together some kind of plan.
A lot of that would have to do with, federal and state policies. I mean, if they start to require that more of these products are a certain percentage U.S. made, then you'll see those inquiries pick up. Just like, Arctic OEM and Med-Eng are basically in the park because they're responding to New York State requirements for transportation, and in the other case with Med-Eng, they're responding to U.S. government requirements that require that a certain percentage of the military components be manufactured in the United States. So that's where those types of prospects come from. So if they can talk a big game, but if they start putting requirements on it and U.S. content requirements, then that's when you'll see more of those companies coming back.
Absolutely, I agree that could happen. I'm just hoping that if that does happen, that there's some kind of requirement that we're ready to move on it quick.
Yeah, we can actually, if they do something like that, like we can do what we've done with, targeting military manufacturers in the Ottawa and Montreal area or the transportation sector. And, once we know where the requirements are, then we can target that particular sector.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for John? No? Do we have any unfinished business?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, let's move to business items. Yeah, first item, A1, was the acceptance of the 2019-2020 audit. Chris, what's your pleasure?
I think that if we gave ourselves a week or 10 days to review the audit before we take action on acceptance, that would make sense to me. I have looked at it briefly and I don't anticipate any reason why we wouldn't accept it, but I'd like to understand it better.
Right. Motion to table for a special meeting within the next 2 weeks?
I'll make a motion to table until approximately less than 2 weeks.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Megan, you seconded that? Anne Marie, is there any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr.
This is a
Kim,
motion to table.
Yes.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney,
Yes.
motion tabled.
Thank you. Move on to item A2.
Mr. Chairman, item A2 is for approval of proposal with Parsons Engineer for professional engineering services for the Augsburg Prescott International Bridge. We solicited fixed fee proposals for bridge engineering firms for providing professional engineering services to the OBPA for safety inspection and load rating of the Augsburg Prescott International Bridge in accordance with the National Bridge Inspection Standards and New York State Department of DOT procedures. We set this up so that the inspection services are for a 4-year period from years 2020 through 2023. This inspection will include the following structural inspections and reports as mandated by the New York State Department of Transportation. If you look there, you see that we will do a biennial inspection without diving or underwater there, and that's for 2020. In 2021, you'll see a special in lieu and interim inspection. That'll be looking at the things that we've done, the year before, and also working off that biennial inspection of 2020. You'll see an in-depth inspection And what that will do, that will take into account the work that we did on the, we'll have to look at the bridge differently because the bridge approach will be upgraded. So we'll need an in-depth inspection and see what everything that we've got there. And out of that, you should see better numbers as far as what the bridge looks like, because the improvement to the US approach. So that would be in 2022, and then there'll be a level 1 load rating, which will reflect the change. You have to do a load rating because you've improved the bridge, and that'll have to be taken into account. So in year 2022, there'll be an in-depth inspection, a level 1 load rating. In 2023, there'll be another special in lieu and interim inspection, and that will be following up after the in-depth inspection from 2022, and then there'll be a diving inspection. We were going on a 4-year diving inspection, even though the state requires 5 years, but in order to do some savings, we're going to try to get back on just a 5-year schedule. So that's why the diving inspection is on the 5th year, because our last diving inspection was 2018. So proposals were received and opened April 29th, 2020, and are as follows. Parsons had the low fixed fee proposal of $499,536. JMT was $538,140. Greenman Peterson was $799,000, and Majeski and Masters was $955,903. We've reviewed these. I have talked to Parsons in depth, and they say they're happy with their numbers. And so I'm recommending approval for Parsons at a cost not to exceed $499,536. Parsons does anticipate MWBE and SDVOB participation that will exceed our project goals. So for a resolution, it is resolved that the interim executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute a contract with Parsons to provide professional engineering services to the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority for safety inspection and load rating of the Ogdensburg Prescott International Bridge for a fee not to exceed $499,536. The inspection services are for a 4-year period for years 2020 through 2023. Do we have some questions on this? I can give you a little background anyway. We did go out with this, and if you look at any of the fixed fees for the 2020 biennial inspection, the price that we're getting for the first year is less than what we paid the last time, but the last time did include a diving inspection. We paid $182,470 to Majeski and Masters back in 2018, and this year with Parsons it'll be $133,466. But recall though that isn't with a diving inspection, so we're not comparing the exact same things. So I just wanted to fill you in on that.
Okay, Steve, as stated, is comfortable with that bid, that they will do the required work. And any questions? Your motion?
I move we approve the resolution. I'll second it.
Motion by Megan, seconded by Chris. Any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Ms. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item A3.
The next item is for approval of a supplement number 2 with Day Automation. John is prepared to lease supplement with Day Automation for 1,235 square feet of space in the 4th Industrial Building commencing June 1st, 2020 and ending May 31st, 2021. at a rate of $720 per month. The rental is to be paid for the space at a rate of $6 per square foot per year, or $617.50 per month, plus a prorated share of the utilities. All other terms and conditions of the original lease remain in effect. Be it resolved that the executive director is hereby authorized to execute supplement number 2 with Day Automation for 1,235 square feet of space for the 4th industrial building commencing June 1st, 2018, and ending on May 31st. That should be changed. That should be 2021. Yes.
Yeah, there's a revised resolution out on that, Steve, and it's $720 per month. It's Anne Marie sent it out, a corrected one. And
Oh, okay.
the date's corrected in it as well.
So is that just on the resolution part, John? Is the report correct?
I think the report was changed too, because there was different numbers in there, and it's for the year, and yeah, running through May 31, 2021, and the rate is $720 per month.
We need I'm sorry, Anne Marie, did you say something?
The version that's up on the screen right now is correct.
The version that's on the screen is correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it has the right date and the amount?
Yes.
Frank, I have one question on that. Where it says resolve that the executive director is hereby authorized, does that have to say interim?
I don't believe so, even though he's designated interim, he is the executive director person.
Okay, making sure, thank you. Is there a motion, accept the resolution as presented on the screen?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Megan. Any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns? Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Whitten?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item A4.
It's approval of agreement with Ken and Caitlin Culp. It's for the authority billboard on Route 11 on property owned by Ken and Caitlin Culp, who reside in DeKalb Junction, New York. This property is formerly owned by Ron and Susan Dias. The current agreement for this billboard sign expires May 31st, 2020. Staff has prepared a letter agreement with Ken and Caitlin Culp for a 2-year period at a rate of $425 a year to be paid by the authority for the period of June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2022. We resolve that the executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute an agreement with Ken and Caitlin Culp for a billboard sign on property located in DeKalb Junction for a fee of $425 per month to be paid by the authority
Per year,
excuse me, to be paid by the authority for a period June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2022.
Your motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
A second.
Any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Who moved it?
Megan?
I did, Anne Marie.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Whitten?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yep.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Move on to business item A5.
That is an approval of an agreement with Woodcrest Dairy LLC. The authority has prepared an agreement with Peter Braun of Woodcrest Dairy LLC for the use of approximately 54 acres of heavy industrial park. The rate to use this property is $30 per acre for the period May 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020, for a total of $1,620 payable in advance. Also included in this agreement is a 60-day termination clause that allows the authority to terminate the agreement in the event the property is needed for economic development, as well as the requirement for proof of the appropriate insurance coverage, naming the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority as additionally insured. Resolved that the executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute an agreement with Woodcrest Dairy for the use of approximately 54 acres of land in the heavy industrial park at a rate of $30 per acre annually for the period May 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020, for a total of $1,620 payable in advance, and be it further resolved that Woodcrest Dairy shall provide proof of the appropriate insurance coverage to the authority, naming the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority as additionally insured.
Are there any questions?
I have a
Is there a motion?
comment.
Yes, Dave.
I'm just, two things come to mind. One, do we ever raise the rent? And then number two, what happens? I would assume there might be some sort of agreement, maybe there isn't. If we wanted that land and there was a crop planted on that land, would we have to be, I assume we would be paying for the crop, or in this case, Woodcrest Dairy would want the money for that. So it would seem that that might be in the agreement, that if we're going to continue with cheap rent, that, or otherwise we would raise the rent. So I'm just, I guess, throwing that out for discussion.
Yeah, this arrangement was put in place a long time ago. It was beneficial for the authority because there were some wetland issues over there, and the previous executive director wanted to get the land into crop production and tilled and everything to cut down on the vegetation and the water that was laying in the fields. We haven't revisited it. We haven't raised the rent at all. We can do that next year if you'd like. I don't think there's anything in there that says we have to pay for the, any crops or anything like that. Usually an economic development project will take, several months anyways to develop. So I don't think that's an issue. But we could look at that language again next year if you'd like, as well as.
I mean, you're probably fine, John. I know when I make a rental agreement, I also ask if I have to terminate the land with my crop on it, I would get reimbursed for the value of it. So I would assume they would want the same, and the rent might be applicable. So given the arrangement, it's a good thing to have the vegetation taken care of in the land. So.
Yeah. What's the, do you think the rate's a little lower?
Well, I'm not familiar with how wet the land is. If it's a pretty decent land, you could probably get another $10 or $15.
Okay.
It's not going to make or break the authority. So.
Yeah.
So Dave, I mean, you would know more than the rest of us. Are you saying that $30 per acre is a little low?
It's a very reasonable rent, but it sounds like there was a mutual benefit to both parties. So I don't think there's an issue.
Yeah, I'm sure there was. And I did, when I read this over, I had a concern regarding a prospective business that was looking at that land. But as John made reference to, I don't think they're ready to do anything prior to November.
All good.
Because we
I
haven't
guess that
heard.
means I would move to accept.
Oh,
We can talk about it.
you sure?
I don't know. If you see it, you may not look it.
Should we hold off on this?
No, you're good with that.
We're good with this?
You're good with that, yes.
Okay. All right. My question's been answered. I'm okay to proceed with this.
We'll talk more about it.
Is there a motion by the board?
Dave moved the motion. I'll second it.
Thank you,
Yep.
Chris. Any further discussion? If not, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item A6.
Agenda item A6 is approval of the purchase of a PAPI system for runway 9. The PAPI light system, the precision approach path indicator, has been deemed unrepairable due to a lightning strike. Quotes for the 3 aviation equipment manufacturers were submitted for both halogen and LED fixture systems. Due to its cost, it is recommended that a purchase be made for the halogen system from Airport Lighting Company for halogen L84-box PAPI voltage for a price of $11,990 plus shipping. Resolved that the Authority Board of Directors authorizes the airport manager to purchase the halogen L84-box PAPI voltage system for runway 9 from Airport Lighting Company at a cost of $11,990 plus shipping. I'll let Stephanie handle any questions, or she can give a little background of what happened with this. And you'll see her letter to me explaining some of that.
Okay, the tracking system was hit by lightning last, I believe, September. It fried all of the components of the system. They cannot be replaced. The system is very, very old. This is used for navigation for landing of aircraft, particularly the smaller type aircraft. It has been notated out of service since September. The halogen lights are the most economical at this time. We have halogen lights on a halogen system on the 27N. I anticipate these to last another 10 years. I don't know quite how long the 27N will last, but with this new system, on the 9N, we should get a good 10 years out of it. Any questions?
We have the halogen at 279, you say?
Yes, or
Or
27.
27, I mean, but not at 9?
Well, it was, we had one at 9, but it was.
Oh, so is it the cost of the LED,
Yes.
the reason why we haven't switched to that for both?
Yes. The cost of the LED is approximately double of the halogen right now. At some point, we will have to go to LED.
I'm surprised we haven't been forced to already.
Now, as long as they were working, we were fine.
And the upgrade could be part of our ACIP.
That's correct.
Okay,
So
good.
the reason Stephanie and I talked about this, it was just it's not the perfect solution, but since we have halogen on one end, and she said that we could make this work for a while, that we work this into our ACIP to upgrade to LED.
Both.
And or both, yeah, on both, yes.
Okay, good.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I do see the dollar amount between the two is pretty significant, but I think as soon as we can use that funding for that, we should have the LED installed.
Does
But
the authority install this, or who does that, the installation work?
local contract?
We would have a local contractor do the installation. It's probably a day's work to do the installation. Airport Authority folks do the monthly and required FAA inspections on it and do most of the maintenance themselves.
Any idea on the cost of the installation?
Well, per day, I would say $2,500 would take care of it. That would
$2,500?
probably be on the out.
Yeah, that's sort of on the high side.
It's on the high side.
Is that what you're looking for, Dave?
Just concerned about, just wondering, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, this is just for the piece of equipment. If installation costs maybe a high of 2,500.
Yeah, that actually probably 1,500
Okay.
would do it.
That's what
All right. Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Seconded by Megan. Any further discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item A7.
Agenda item A7 is approval of a lease agreement at the airport with J.E. Sullivan and Sons Incorporated. Staff has negotiated a lease agreement with J.E. Sullivan and Sons Incorporated to provide concession services at the Augsburg International Airport at a rate of $315 per month and 10% of gross revenue for the term of the agreement payable to the authority. The initial payment of $315 is due before commencement of the lease. The 10% gross revenue shall be paid by the 15th of each month based on the prior month's gross revenue. The monthly payment of 10% gross revenue shall be accompanied by a statement attesting to the total amount of gross revenue earned during the previous month. Resolved that the executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute an agreement with J.E. Sullivan and Sons to provide concession services at the Augsburg International Airport for the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 at the rate of $315 per month and 10% of gross revenue payable to the authority. If you got any questions, Stephanie, anything you want to add to that?
They've been a good tenant in the past.
Strex, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Strex subs. They've been a good tenant in the past. They expressed their real desire to stay at the airport, and they're looking forward to traffic picking back up. And I think they're a real asset to the airport because of the services they provide for us.
Good. Is there a motion?
I move to accept.
I'll
Second?
second.
Okay,
I'll
been moved and
second.
seconded. Any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Anything else? I don't have those other
Okay.
items.
We have 3 items under other such matters. And let's see, I don't know if we can get you a copy. Get a copy, you need to see this. Does everybody have the other such matters? There was, one was approval of the base bid award. Thank you. Okay. They were sent out this morning, that's probably why. There's each one of those, and then there's the bid results and then.
Okay. Everyone have agenda item B, approval of base bid award for snow removal equipment? Everyone have that? Yes, okay. Continue, please, Steve.
This was all bid, and the timing, we need to have things into the FAA by the 15th, and it was bid on the 9th. So McFarland Johnson came up and they actually took all the bid information and turned everything around with a recommendation yesterday. And then we had to put this into 2 resolutions for two pieces of equipment that we're purchasing. So some of it may sound the same, but it's for 2 different pieces of equipment. I didn't want to lump everything in because I want approval from the board so that we can go forward and with purchase orders for each of these pieces of equipment if we're approved by the FAA. But this involves the $1 million that we get, and you'll see in there we summarize the amounts that we're entitled of our entitlement funds. So I'll begin with the base bid award for snow removal equipment for MB companies. The authority solicited bids June 9th, 2020 for the purchase of new airport snow removal equipment, SRE. And the FAA project number is AIP number 3-36-0089-056-2020 for the Augsburg International Airport. The authority received 1 base bid from MB Companies, Chilton, Wisconsin, for a multi-purpose SRE with a carrier vehicle with 22-foot power reversible snowplow, underbody snowplow, and 20-foot pintle and 20-foot pintle eye tow behind broom in the amount of $707,729. 2 other bidders on the base bid submitted no bid on that base bid portion of the SRE solicitation. Based on the discussions with our airport consultants, McFarland Johnson, and available entitlement funds, the fact that the low bidder's value is below the engineer's estimate for the project and the vendor's qualification on the equipment at other airports, staff is recommending award to the base bid to MB Companies for $707,729,000. In here, I did a primary entitlement grant summary just so the board would be aware of the finances involved. The base bid award of $707,729 to MB Companies, along with the award of the alternate bid award, that's the second piece of equipment, which was $359 to Monroe Tractor, brings the recommended award to $1,066,729. The total recommended award of $1,066,729 brings the anticipated grant total to $1,078,729 when agreed to engineering services and Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority's administration costs are included. The $1,078,729 is slightly above the $1,050,000 anticipated in the 2020 airport capital improvement project. Resolved that the executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute a purchase order with MB Companies, Chilton, Wisconsin, for a multi-purpose SRE with carrier vehicle with 22-foot power reversible snowplow, underbody snowplow, and 20-foot pintle-eye tow behind broom, AIP number 3-36-0089-056-2020 for the Augsburg International Airport for a cost not to exceed $707,729. And be it further resolved that this project is being funded as follows. The Federal Aviation Administration, $1 million, and the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority, $78,729. A note on that is that we're going to submit for the whole amount, and depending on how we compete with other funds, the FAA may be able to fund the whole project, but that isn't a given. So I just wanted to be aware that part of our responsibility on that will be $78,729.
Stephanie,
Any questions?
the equipment we're talking about here, these 2 pieces, how much does that improve what you need to be done out there?
Well, it will improve the efficiency because the FAA requires us not only to have certain types of equipment based upon the square footage of pavement that we have and the time frame that it takes. We are under a time constraint to clean the runways to a no worse than wet condition. It will improve dramatically. The current snowplow that we do have, large snowplow, is a 2000 Oshkosh snowplow, so it's over 20 years old. The broom is a 2001 MB tow behind broom. It's getting to the point where parts are harder to find, and they're getting harder. So this, the new broom and plow assembly will greatly increase our reliability, first of all, and then due to the fact that if our current plow, the 2000 Oshkosh, would go down, we do not have a piece of equipment big enough to pull the runway, any of our runway ropes. So we would need to have that. Looking forward to getting a new piece of equipment with all the necessities and the new safety features that are on these pieces of equipment.
Good. I think the fact that we, at most, would only have to come up with 78,000 is pretty good.
Yes, for that amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that piece of equipment. Is there a motion?
Just a question, is that a payload? I'm assuming it's a payloader, is the other thing from,
The second,
Well, Dave, that's the second, on the second, yes, it is.
is that all part of the same resolution?
No, there'll be separate resolutions. The next one will deal with purchasing that front wheel or four-wheel drive front end loader.
Okay.
Can I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second, Pam.
Any motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes,
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, agenda item B2.
Agenda item B2 is the approval of the additive bid alternate award for the snow removal equipment to Monroe Tractor. We set this, the bid process up to try to obtain 3 pieces of equipment, and we wanted to see if all 3 pieces came within the anticipated budget, we could afford that. But what ended up happening is alternate number 1, bid alternate number 1 was too much. So we basically picked the first base bid piece that we just approved, and then the alternate number 2 involves the front end loader, which was the second piece. The authority solicited bids on June 9th, 2020 for the purchase of new airport snow removal equipment, SRE, AIP number 3-36-089-056-2020 for the Augsburg International Airport. The authority received 2 additive bid alternative number 2 bids. Staff recommends the award of additive bid alternate number 2, a four-wheel drive front end loader with 1 standard 3 cubic yard bucket, a detachable snow blower, a broom, forks, and snow pusher, a ramp hog, to Monroe Tractor, North Syracuse for $359,000. The apparent low bidder for the additive bid number 2 has been rejected as it did not meet the Federal Aviation Administration Buy American requirements. One other bidder submitted no bid for the additive bid alternative number 2 bid portion of the SRE solicitation. Based on discussions with our consultants, McFarland Johnson, and available entitlement funds, the fact that the low bidder's value is below the engineer's estimate for the project, and the vendor's qualification on equipment at other airports, staff is recommending award of the additive bid alternate number 2 bid to Monroe Tractor for $359,000. The summary right there is just kind of the reverse I just talked about, in that it says the alternative bid alternate number 2, the amount of $359 to Monroe Tractor, along with the base bid award of $707,729 to MB Companies, brings the recommended award amount to $1,066,729. The total recommended award of $1,066,729 brings the anticipated grant total to $1,078,729 when agreed to engineering services and the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority's administration costs are included. The $1,078,729 is slightly above the $1,050,000 anticipated for the 2020 Airport Capital Improvement Program. Resolved that the executive director is hereby authorized and directed to execute a purchase order with Monroe Tractor, North Syracuse, New York, for a 4-wheel drive front-end loader with 1 standard 3 cubic yard bucket, a detachable snow blower, broom, forks, snow pusher, ramp hog, AIP number 3-36-0089-056-2020 for the Ogdensburg International Airport for a cost not to exceed $359,000. And be it resolved that this project is being funded as follows. The FAA is funding $1 million, and the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority is responsible for $78,729, bringing it a total of $1,078,729.
Questions? For a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Mr. King, you had a question?
Nope, I just thought we were putting it through on both, and I'm good.
Okay. All right, no further discussion. Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes,
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Agenda item B3.
Okay. What's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman? This is the first you've seen it, but this was pushed on us by NYSERDA. They're anxious, so we can hold off. But I asked them to, and you might explain it to the board.
We can talk about this. Everyone has a resolution in front of them. B3. Okay. NYSERDA is looking to develop, or at least come up with a plan on the use of some of the property here, OBPA property, for a clean energy product that could come in the future, not necessarily through any particular company, but they would at least look at the land and see if how it could be developed for a company that might be interested in it. I don't like giving anything away for free. $100 is almost free.
Free.
I don't know. What's the board's pleasure? You might have to convince me to vote for this.
Sam, I don't see any real downside. It looks to me as if the only thing we'd have to do would be to offer it to NYSERDA if we had another interested party. And I assume that would be at terms that would have to match the interested party. So it's sort of nothing lost. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah.
I think what it says is right of first refusal. Is that what you're reading, Chris? I think that's what I see.
Yeah, yeah.
And then NYSERDA will be doing over the next year, they will be looking at all this property and getting it all permitted so that they can hand it over to a developer who's interested. So they will do all the preliminary work to make our property, something that's desirable for a clean energy project. That's the way I understand it. I did have expectations of receiving more money for this, and it was handed over from a different entity, and this is what came back to us. And apparently some of that went away, and I've heard different things of what NYSERDA is paying or on these things. So it's a little different from the way I understood it.
I'd be interested in seeing exactly what their plans are, because I don't know what they are. This is, just saying they want to evaluate. I mean, I don't know what that means. If that means they would come up with a plan on how any prospective company, not naming any company, what amount of land they will be looking at, how much they would be interested in using, and maybe some sort of estimation on production of energy, because in my mind, the amount of energy produced would have a lot to do in what the authority would charge any company to use our land, in my mind. And I don't think this resolution gives me the amount of information I would like to know what NYSERDA wants to do.
I'm probably more
Sam,
bothered by, oops, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, I mean, are they open for discussion, or is this just a take it or leave it situation?
Really, I haven't had that discussion, but I get the feeling something disappeared in the translation when it went over to NYSERDA to do the site agreement, because I had expectations of receiving some kind of per acre amount for the amount of land that the authority would offer, and you can see that in the map. And all that came back was the 100. I went through it first time looking for big numbers, and there was nothing there. So all I saw was $100.
See, I guess that's the one thing that bothers me, is that you had a different understanding of what that would be. I still don't see a downside, but I guess I would like you to find out what that expectation really is. Before
Go ahead.
I mean, I would have a hard time. I would probably approve this, except for the fact I sense your discomfort with it. So I would have you make sure that you know for certain you are happy with it.
Yeah, I've done a lot of begging lately, and I think I've wore out my welcome with a lot of people. So I'm a little, it's like, getting a little timid. I'm afraid I may be asking for too much. So that's part of the reason. To be honest with you, Mr. King, I haven't really asked those questions. This all came at me, and they were interested in getting it approved. And part of that was, well, we've got a June board meeting coming up, and I just wanted to put that before you. not really with a point of having discussion. But the way the environment is today with all the video and the teleconferencing and everything, communication along those lines causes things like this to happen. And I probably, if I could have had in-person talks with the proper people, I would understand it better. Just trying to get a hold of some people, and then I've only really had discussions with NYSERDA over the last 4 days, and I didn't. There was no discussion of additional funding or monies there, and frankly, I didn't talk to anybody about that.
I would like to recommend that we table this to the special meeting we're going to have on the acceptance of the audit. And hopefully by then, Steve will be able to receive additional information from NYSERDA.
Second that.
That's fine.
Okay?
Yep.
Motion,
Sounds good.
thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to table this to the special meeting we will have on the acceptance of the 2019-2020 audit. And Marie, call the roll.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion carried, item tabled.
Thank you. Is there a B4?
Sorry, stop it. No, I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done. No more surprises.
Okay, is there any concluding comments from any board member? Any questions of any staff that are here or online maybe?
Can we set the next 2 meeting dates while we're all together?
Okay.
Well, you're pushing us, Anne Marie. Actually, it depends on the rest of the board, but the special meeting we would have on the audit and the NYSERDA agreement, I would like to have everyone here. We can work it out so we have the proper distance between us. But if anyone is not comfortable with that, then we'll continue with what we're doing.
I'm fine with that.
Dave, you're good?
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to bring chocolate milk, but. Megan, what about you?
That's fine, Sam.
Okay, so when is the best time to have that special meeting? Dates? Need a date before Anne Marie says bad things about us. Any particular time? Anybody free? Everybody free the week of the 22nd?
I am
That
not
looks
free
okay
on
with
Monday.
me.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Dave, are you busy the whole week?
I'm not free on Monday.
Okay. How about Thursday, the 25th?
I think that will work.
Chris? Megan?
Yep, that's clear with me.
Okay, what time?
3:30 work,
Three?
usual.
What time?
Don't we usually do 3:30
Yes,
unless it,
3:30 on Thursday, the 25th,
It works.
right here in the boardroom. Agreed?
Very excited.
yeah, that's great.
I can hear it, yeah.
The enthusiasm is
It
overwhelming.
is. All right, the July meeting.
And the July meeting, yes.
Okay. I didn't forget about you, Anne Marie. We might have to revise this because they're gonna start playing hockey in either July or August, so I'll have to look at the schedule. Is the 16th, Thursday the 16th, a good day for our regular meeting? Yes?
Yep.
Hang on.
I can check the
Looks
calendar.
fine to me. Yep.
Okay, 6:30.
Yep.
Chris and Megan, that's good?
Yep. Thank you.
Anne Marie, is that okay with you?
I don't know. So 3:30?
3:30 on July 16th, the regular meeting. And that will hopefully be here too. Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I have a need to discuss one item in executive session.
Can we do executive session on this?
Yes,
Yes.
Anne Marie can dismiss people and
Oh,
we can just have the board members.
you're the best, Anne Marie. So, there's a need for executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Or, I'm sorry, for the purpose of?
It's relating to section 105(1)(f) of the open meeting laws, matters leading to the appointment of a corporation or particular corporation.
Okay, is there a motion?
So
There will
moved.
be there's no.
No action
No
afterwards?
action afterwards.
Okay, no anticipated action. Was the motion made?
Yes, Megan made it.
Second?
I'll second that. Chris,
All those in favor say aye.
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 I just need the board members and I can fill you. in.
Okay, Anne Marie, if you would
Fill you in later on. Thank you.
dismiss everybody else who's online. Aye, thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Steve, you want me offline?
Are we off now? Anne Marie?
Just
Is there any further business? Is
No.
there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. We'll see you 3:30 right here on the 25th.